Jaime Dornan and the dark side behind intimate scenes. I carried that obsession with me for years. Jaime Dornan became a household name after his role as Christian Grey in the 50 Shades of Grey franchise. But behind the glamour, the admiring glances, and the praise for his good looks lies another story, one that has never been told. In an exclusive interview at a small cottage tucked away in a pine forest in Wicklow, Ireland, where Jaime sought to get away from the world, he opens up for the first time about what haunted him for years, after starring in the film that changed his career and life forever. I never thought doing an intimate scene would make me feel out of control, Jaime begins, his voice quiet, his eyes fixed on the window, which is covered in a light layer of mist. People see the sexiness, the boldness, but they don't see the emptiness after. Long takes and feeling out of my element, Jaime recounts the filming of 50 Shades of Grey, where intimate scenes, which were meant to be short moments of a few minutes, actually lasted for hours. With a large crew, lights shining on every inch of skin, and dry instructions, the atmosphere on set was the complete opposite of the romance on screen. I remember one time we had to shoot a bed scene for 9 hours. Everything was so calculated, the camera angles, the movements, the breathing. After that, I left the set feeling like an empty shell. He doesn't blame the director or co-star Dakota Johnson, who he describes as my only ally in the chaos. But Jaime admits he wasn't mentally prepared for the emotional impact of such scenes. I used to think I was strong. I was a grown man, married, with kids. But after those days of filming, I would go home and I couldn't hug my wife like I used to. I felt guilty, even though it was just acting, when the lines between character and real person blur. Christian Grey is a complex character, strong, controlling, and deeply troubled. Jaime says that getting into character wasn't the hardest part, but taking it off the screen. I didn't expect to bring Christian home with me, he admits. At first it was just little details, the way I sat, the way I talked. But then I became quieter, more reserved. I felt like I was stuck between two people. For a while after filming ended, Jaime began to suffer from insomnia. He would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, the sound of the camera and the lines repeating themselves over and over again in his head. Doctors diagnosed him with mild anxiety, something he never thought would happen to him. The public's eyes and biased views, the commercial success of 50 Shades made Jaime a global sex symbol. But that fame did not bring him pride. Instead, he felt boxed in, seen only through the prism of sex scenes. I took my son to the park one day, and a woman came up to me and asked to take a picture. But instead of asking about the role, she whispered in my ear, "I wish I was tied to a chair like in the movies." Right in front of my son, he says, a look of hurt on his face. Jaime says that was the moment he realized he had sacrificed something very deep, his image as a decent man, a husband, a father, for the sake of a role. Rebuilding yourself from the fragments. After the final film in the series premiered, Jaime decided to take a break from acting. He returned to Ireland, spent time with his family, and took on smaller independent and artistic projects. It was a period of what he calls creative therapy, a period where he used acting to heal himself. "I don't regret taking the role of Christian Grey," he says. "But if I could do it again, I would ask for a mental health team." Intimate scenes need to be treated as seriously as dangerous action scenes. In the months after 50 Shades Freed ended its run, Jaime Dornan all but disappeared from magazine covers. Interview requests came pouring in, but he turned them all down. Not because of arrogance or fatigue, but because of a more urgent need for peace. "I needed time to get back to being a normal person," Jaime shared. "I used to see myself through the media images, the muscular body, the sexy eyes, the cold expression. But then one day, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself anymore. The only person Jaime trusted during that period was his wife, Amelia Warner. She was not only his life partner, but also the only spiritual support strong enough to pull Jaime out of the darkness that was slowly consuming him from within. There were nights when I cried, not because of the pain, but because of the emptiness. She sat next to me, didn't ask me anything, just held my hand for a long time. Amelia was an actress, and knew that superficial glamour was never enough to cover up deep emotional scars. It was she who suggested that Jaime see a therapist, something he had thought unnecessary, until he realized he could not escape the shadow of Christian Grey. A secret room in his mind, Jaime remembered his first meeting with the therapist very clearly. He didn't say anything for the first 20 minutes. He just sat there, his hands clasped together, staring at the floor. I don't know where to start. I'm not depressed. I'm not an alcoholic or a drug addict. But I'm not okay. There's something stuck inside. The therapist didn't press him. Instead, they played a simple mental game. Imagine your mind as a house, and describe each room. Jaime paused for a long time when he had to describe a locked room, where he stored all the emotions related to intimate scenes in movies. I didn't hate those scenes. But I hated that my feelings weren't taken seriously. Every time I finished filming, I was praised for doing a good job. But no one asked, how did you feel after doing that? From that day on, Jaime started keeping a diary every day. Not to remember, but to release. The entries would be pages long, sometimes just a single line. I'm tired of being sexy. The price of being an icon. With his fame and sexy image on screen, Jaime became the subject of many unfriendly looks, even from colleagues in the industry. I've had a great script come in, and then the director pulled it because they didn't want Christian Grey in their movie. I understand that, but it still hurts. He says there were times when he walked into an audition room and felt the coldness. As if what he did in 50 Shades was beyond redemption. The saddest thing is, I'm not seen as an actor, I'm seen as a marketing product. Jaime knows he's not the only one who's ever been pigeonholed for a role, but he's one of the few willing to speak openly about the emotional toll. Not to complain, but to warn young actors, that fame doesn't come with inner integrity. A healing journey through less sexy roles. In 2019, Jaime appeared in the film A Private War, playing Paul Conroy, a war photographer. The role didn't involve sex scenes, no undressing, no soft lighting or sexy soundtrack. But Jaime says, it was the sexiest role I've ever had. I got to be a real person, with pain, fear, empathy. No six-packs, no handcuffs. Just eyes and real pain. Then came Belfast, the critically acclaimed film that brought Jaime back to the awards scene, this time as an actor with depth, not a sex symbol. Sharing to free. Our conversation lasted nearly 3 hours. As the afternoon sun faded behind the pines, Jaime smiled softly, for the first time since the beginning of the session. I may never really get over what I did, but I've learned to live with it. Ask why he decided to share all this now, he said. Because so many young actors still think intimate scenes are a shortcut to success. I want him to understand, it's not a scene. It's a part of your psyche that you carry around, and sometimes, it's so heavy that you don't even recognize yourself. Jaime hopes that Hollywood, and audiences, will gradually change their perspective. That on-screen intimacy requires as much mental preparation as action scenes or stunts. That those who step off the set are still real people, with real feelings, and sometimes, real wounds.